On this episode of China Uncensored, the best Cyber Monday deals ever for companies moving out of China. Hi, welcome back to China Uncensored. I'm your host, Chris Chappell. As the U.S.-China trade war continues, it looks like China is starting to feel the heat.
And certainly in China, they're starting to feel it. It's starting to harm confidence in the market. So in China, real concerns.
The Chinese government reported the country's gross domestic product, or GDP, growth as 6.5% in the third quarter. That's the weakest rate since the financial crisis of 2008. And that's just the official statistic. Local officials often, let's call it, upwardly exaggerate GDP numbers to look good. Just like you might upwardly exaggerate your gross homework product to your parents, which works well until they see your report card. Unfortunately, there's no report card that shows China's real economic numbers to the rest of the world. So it's safe to say that the real GDP growth is not 6.5%, but we don't know what it actually is, except that it's probably much lower. And there are other signs that the trade war with the U.S. is affecting the Chinese economy. At a recent China Import and Export Fair in Guangzhou, orders of exports to the United States fell by a shocking 30% from last year. So China's getting hit hard, and it's going to keep getting worse, unless President Trump backs down from the trade war. And really, when was the last time Trump backed down from anything? Here's Trump's Vice President Mike Pence speaking at the APEC summit earlier this month.
We've taken decisive action to address our trade imbalance with China. We've put tariffs on $250 billion in Chinese goods, and we could more than double that number. But we hope for better. The United States, though, will not change course until China changes its ways.
The U.S. isn't going to back down, but the Chinese leadership is also not planning to back down.
Mankind has once again reached a crossroads. Which direction should we choose? Cooperation or confrontation? Openness or closing one's door? Win-win progress or zero-sum game?
He also expressed deep concerns about import taxes on honey. Tensions between the U.S. and China ran so high at the APEC summit that the countries at the event couldn't even agree on a simple joint statement to conclude the meeting. Papua New Guinea Prime Minister Peter O'Neill said that the entire world is worried. Well, maybe not the entire world, because while China might be losing the trade war, the opposite of win-win cooperation is not lose-lose. It's China loses, other countries win. Remember how I said orders of exports to the U.S. from China fell by 30% at the trade fair? Well, it's because the trade war has made Americans realize that we consume too many material goods and need to cut back on spending. Just kidding. Here's a giant crowd of people trying to get into a Macy's store in New York City on Thanksgiving. Black Friday starts on Thursday now, everyone. More is more. So Americans are not going to buy less stuff, unless maybe stuff gets a lot more expensive. But manufacturing stuff in China is going to get a lot more expensive for companies selling their stuff to Americans because of tariffs. But they don't want to make their stuff so expensive that Americans don't buy it anymore. And that's why big companies are shifting their manufacturing out of China. Some of them are relocating back to America. But most of them are just relocating to Southeast Asia, where it's way cheaper. Last month, Goertek, the Shandong-based manufacturer of Apple's AirPods, announced it would move production of their wireless headphones to Vietnam. The company's chief executive said the reason for the move was the trade war. And Brooks Running, a shoe and apparel brand owned by Warren Buffett, looks set for a similar move.
The conclusion we've come to, move it out of China.
Where do you move?
Probably for us, Vietnam, and the door will close there because of the labor shortages.
The CEO of the Canadian National Railway Company says that the light manufacturing sector is particularly prone to quick factory uproot and relocation. He told Bloomberg that they're going to Vietnam, they're going to Bangladesh, they're going to Indonesia, and the product is still being made. Again, we're never going to stop shopping. Remember everyone, today is Cyber Monday. Get those 4K TVs to watch my YouTube videos on. Anyway, a report by the American Chamber of Commerce in China says that nearly a third of U.S. companies they surveyed are seeking to source components and/or assembly outside China because of the trade war. Of those, 17% said they're considering relocating to the U.S., and 53% said Southeast Asia. So the biggest winners in the trade war so far are actually these Southeast Asian countries. And as companies relocate, job opportunities and wages there go up. And China will have to find another way to get more of that sweet, sweet honey. So what do you think about U.S. companies moving their supply chains out of China because of the trade war? Leave your comments below. And before you go, it's time for me to answer a question from one of you who supports China Uncensored through the crowdfunding website Patreon. Large Zoe asks, does Chris actually have a huge student loan to pay off? Sadly, the best comedy is based on truth. You know how people in their early 20s always make great financial decisions? Well, fresh out of college, I decided it would be a great idea to get a master's degree at New York University. Now, I have a degree in classical music composition, and I'm basically unemployable. All I have to my name is massive student loan debt, a tiny apartment in Queens, and a YouTube show that no one wants to advertise on. See? It's funny because it's true. Speaking of which, do you want me to keep making episodes of China Uncensored? Please support our continued growth by pledging $1 or more per episode by going to patreon.com/China Uncensored. The link is below. Click the button to like this video and subscribe and turn on notifications so you get alerted anytime we publish a new video. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching China Uncensored.